Welcome back. Today, in a nation torn between discontent and defiance, the echoes of protests reverberate across the Canadian landscape. At the heart of this turmoil stands Justin Trudeau, a leader under fire for his handling of dissent and taxation policies. I'm QuikPolitics, and if you find this content engaging, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button, as your support truly helps the channel grow. Now, let's delve into the heart of the matter. Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, faces mounting criticism for his heavy-handed approach to protests against his carbon tax hikes. His deployment of over 100 RCMP riot police officers armed with automatic weapons has ignited a firestorm of resentment among citizens.
The police involvement here at this level, this could elicit an even bigger response like what we saw at Milk River. Is that what they want? I think they all need to call in sick, take COVID tests, and shut her down and say, I can't make it into work today.
Did you used to have faith in police?
Not really, but now it's really bad because they have tarnished the badge. Like I have no respect for them anymore. They should have stood down in Ottawa, but they didn't. So right now what they're doing, they're working for their corporation instead of taking care of we the people. So they're not taking care of us. They're ready to pounce on us anytime, and that's very sad.
They have hundreds of officers, and some of them have automatic weapons.
Just, what are they going to do? You know, they've got too many people down here that just elicits a negative response, and it turns people against them, and then they wonder why. We saw what happened in Ottawa, we see what happened here, and we saw what happened in Coos, we saw what happened in Milk River. It's atrocious. If this much money is being spent on this, and we've got as much rampant crime in these communities, and they won't do anything about it, but they'll stand arm in arm against civilians who are just exercising their God-given rights to actually protest the taxes, the carbon taxes, the cost of living, and we've had it.
The protest started yesterday and it's still going on the second day. When is it going to end?
Well, I've packed for 3 weeks. There's a few of us who have packed enough food for 3 weeks. There are some really nice people in the town close by in Cochrane that have volunteered to come and do our laundry for us, so we would like to stay here for as long as it takes to end the carbon tax.
Seems like the government is expecting this to evolve into Milk River, hence the huge police presence. But let me ask you this, is it time to kick RCMP out of Alberta?
RCMP have no place in this province any longer, and that's what needs to happen here is the Alberta government needs to do a patch over and take the good RCMP officers that want to leave this force and become the provincial police force, and we'll leave the rest of these brethren behind. We'll call it a day, and Alberta will set the trail for how we're going to do policing in our own province, and it won't be beholden to Ottawa and the government in Ottawa that pushes these people out here.
Critics contend that Trudeau's response to dissent he disagrees with is dismissive and authoritarian, prompting calls for accountability and policy changes. This hypocrisy is evident in his handling of protests, such as those against Israel, where he defends the right to protest, yet adopts a different stance when it comes to protests against the carbon tax.
Protests in Toronto over the weekend where there were a number of arrests made. Despite policing obviously being a provincial jurisdiction, a lot of people still turning to you for your perspective. I guess what steps will your government take, perhaps working with the provinces, to both balance the obligations of law enforcement with Canadians' rights to peacefully assemble and free speech?
It is a fundamental right that people are able to protest freely in this country. It is really, really important in our democracy and in democracies around the world that people have that ability to mobilize, go out and express their concerns for policies here at home or things happening overseas. That's something that this government will always defend. And that protest needs to be done peacefully in a way that doesn't endanger other people's lives. We expect police to both obey the laws and enforce the laws. And that's something that I think is necessary. Just waving a Palestinian flag is not in itself something that is unacceptable or anti-Semitic. People are allowed to express their concerns on every side of the event. It's when you start making people feel unsafe in their neighborhoods, in their schools, in their communities, that we fall into things where police do need to lean in and make sure that everyone is safe and feels safe. But that is a balance that is ongoing every single day by police forces across the country. And as a federal government, we expect people to obey the law. We expect the police to obey the law, but we also expect the police to enforce the law.
Despite the crackdown, local residents stand in solidarity with the protesters, offering food and other resources. Calls to oust the RCMP from Alberta and establish a provincial police force grow louder. Ontario Premier Doug Ford joins the chorus of dissent, warning of electoral consequences if Trudeau continues his punitive carbon tax hikes. He criticizes Bonnie Crombie, the mayor of Mississauga, for her support of the carbon tax.
I'm so thrilled to stand with you. I just wish I could say I was happy about what we're here to talk about today. Yesterday, on April the 1st, against the urging of premiers of every political stripe right across our country, the federal government raised the carbon tax yet again, this time by a whopping 23%. Today, the carbon tax now costs 17.6 cents per liter of gas. And just think of that, the people filling up. Every single time you see that clicker go, that 17.6 cents, that should be in your pocket, not the government's pocket. This isn't the first time they've raised their carbon tax, but it couldn't come at a worse time. Now, because of this awful carbon tax, families across Ontario spent their Easter weekends lined up around the block, waiting to fill their gas tanks up one more time before the increase kicked in. I saw it just down the street from where I live. People were lined up. Everywhere I went, people were lined up. What does that tell you? You know, folks, we have so many people here. I could fill this field, not with hundreds of thousands, millions of people that are against this carbon tax. I'm here today, we're all here today to make it clear. We stand against the carbon tax because we know Ontario families deserve to keep more money and their hard-earned money in their own pockets, not the government's, because we know Ontario businesses can't afford more costly burden. And at a time when the cost of living has never been higher, leaders at every single level of government, they have a duty. They have a duty to do everything we can to keep costs down for the hard-working people of Ontario. That's why, for months, I've been urging the federal government to scrap the carbon tax, and I got to crack that. It hasn't been months. I've been chasing them for years on this thing. And pause yesterday's increase. Not everyone can say they've done the same. For weeks, as the carbon tax hike loomed, Bonnie Crombie has refused to stand against it. Instead, she's dodged questions and desperately tried to change the subject, all while refusing to stand up for taxpayers. In fact, just last week, when given the opportunity to vote against the carbon tax, every single one of Bonnie Crombie's Liberal MPPs sat on their hands and did absolutely nothing. We shouldn't be surprised. Bonnie Crombie is the queen of carbon tax. As a Liberal MP, she was one of the first people in Canada to support the carbon tax. She led the carbon tax charge when she was in Ottawa. As mayor, she raised property taxes every year she was in office, including last year. She gave the largest tax increase in Mississauga's history. And as a Liberal leader, she refuses to stand up against the carbon tax. Ontario families, farmers, and small business owners, they deserve better. They deserve leaders who will stand up for them. They deserve a government that will fight to put more money back into their pockets. That's exactly what our government is doing. Last week, we extended our gas tax cut another 6 months, keeping 10.7 cents of every single liter back into your pockets instead of the government's. That's on top of eliminating road tolls and scrapping the license plate sticker fee. We're saving drivers hundreds of dollars every year, money that's going back into people's pockets where it belongs. And you can bet, as Bonnie Crombie, the queen of the carbon tax, remains silent, our government will never stop fighting the federal government on their terrible carbon tax. I want to thank everyone for coming today, and may God bless the people of Ontario. Thank you.
Furthermore, accusations of neglect towards military personnel have surfaced, painting a picture of a government detached from the realities faced by those who serve their country. with some Canadian military men saying Trudeau's neglect of the military is shameful. We're left struggling to survive while he jets off on luxurious vacations. It's time for him to honor his solemn duty to support the troops. Public outrage is mounting, with citizens and provincial leaders alike voicing their discontent. Trudeau's approval ratings are dwindling as more people demand accountability and changes in direction. As Canadians awaken to their power and demand a future free from burdensome taxes and policies, the pressure on Justin Trudeau continues to escalate. Will he listen to the voices of the people, or will he face the consequences of his actions? Only time will tell. Thank you for joining us. If you appreciate content that delves into critical issues, consider subscribing for more insightful updates. Stay informed, and until next time, I'm QuikPolitics, signing off.